All right, so let's recap on the part that we learned last week on Saturday about glycolysis and link reaction. After we learn those part, then we will come back to Krebs cycle and the questions. All right. Chapter ini Miss memang akan emphasize banyak sebab dia banyak markah dalam dalam yang dalam PSPM 2 and about 16 marks boleh je keluar dalam essay atau structure. It depends. Kadang-kadang essay lagi senang sebab kalau essay at least you tulis je ada points dia bagi markah. Tapi kalau untuk structure konsep you salah, yang jawapan tu terus tak ada markah. But essay is risky in the way that it will be all or none. It means kalau you boleh faham soalan tu, konsep tu betul, terus you dapat semua markah. Kalau tak tu memang tak ada markah. And now on glycolysis, the first one like I did the other day, kita start dengan mnemonic dia. This thing is what we call the mnemonic. Okay, I tak spell it out, but I think you dah tahu lah. So Jillian, and then the next one,
Gibbs,
Yves. So, and then
Fresh,
Fresh,
frosty,
Frosty.
drink,
Okay, drink ini memang kena hafal sendiri ya. DHAP. Drink means dihydroxyacetone phosphate, and then
green tea pie,
green tea pie,
orange topping,
orange topping. Orang lain pun tolong jawab. Ayu jangan seorang je jawab, orang lain semua senyap. The next one,
Truffle.
truffle. So 3, 4, so phosphor. And then
2.
2,
Pepi Popeye.
peppy.
Peppy
So
Popeye.
peppy, so PEP, so PEP. And then the last one, Popeye, that's pyruvate. Okay, so yang glycolysis you memang dah kena ingat, dia start break down glucose yang 6 carbon into 2 molecules of pyruvate yang 3 carbon. Make sure you will list out all the compound first. List out semua nama ini dulu, baru you start process dia. Then you won't get confused. Now let's just fill in glucose 6-phosphate and then fructose 6-phosphate, fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. After that, yang DHAP ini kena sendiri ingatlah dihydroxyacetone phosphate. And then ini glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. And then start dari 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate. Yang belakang ini semua ialah phosphoglycerate. Sampailah PEP yang peppy. Peppy tu maksudnya belakang ialah P. So pyruvate. Dia ikut the last one. PEP, peppy, so pyruvate, phosphoenolpyruvate. And the last one, pyruvate. This is the way that you write out all the compound first. Then only you fill in the processes. So let's talk about the process now. Now glucose to glucose 6-phosphate fructose 6-phosphate, fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, and then dia start splitting into DHAP dengan glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. And because the next step, dia tak boleh guna DHAP. So DHAP kena tukar jadi
G3P.
G3P. Very good. And that's why we will have 2 molecules of G3P. Semua dekat sini dia akan jadi times 2. Sebab dari satu yang dia ada, DHAP buat lagi satu. That's why I will have 2 glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Tapi sini benda yang sama kami tak tulis 2 kali. It's just that you have to remember by yourself. We will have 2 glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate from 1 glucose. And that's why this first 5 steps, we call it as the energy
investment plan.
Very good. Energy investment phase, where we will use ATP. Bahagian yang kita guna ATP itu sangat ketara. You boleh nampak dia ada tambah phosphate group. Once you can see the addition of phosphate group, then you know that part is where we will use the ATP. Macam sini glucose jadi ada phosphate, mestilah sini yang kita tambah phosphate group. And phosphate group inilah dari ATP. So dia sendiri jadi ADP. Mana lagi ada tambah phosphate group?
Step 3.
Step 3. So 1, 2, 3 dari fructose 6-phosphate to fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Kalau dekat sini Miss tak letak numbering ke apa, kalau dalam exam tanya which step produce ATP, cara you describe ialah fructose 6-phosphate to fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Ini ialah cara you describe the step that produces ATP. That uses ATP. Dekat bahagian ni dia guna. So dia bagi phosphate group, ATP ini bagi phosphate group untuk fructose 6-phosphate, and that's how it forms fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. And dia sendiri jadi ADP. Right, 2 steps ini kita panggil apa?
Phosphorylation.
Very good. So phosphorylation. Okay, both they are called phosphorylation, and these are the 2 steps that you need to remember the enzyme. Kalau untuk yang glucose to glucose 6-phosphate, enzyme dia ialah
Hexokinase.
good job. Hexokinase. Senang je nak ingat sebab 6. You just remember glucose 6 carbon, so the first one pun dekat 6. So hexokinase. And then for this step, enzyme dia ialah
Phosphofructokinase.
good job. Phosphofructokinase. Right. Okay, now for this one, how do I know it is 3? Kalau green tea pie, T tu tahulah ialah 3. Ataupun kalau you tahu je glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate ialah 3 carbon, then you know this is 3. Macam ini juga 6 carbon, so ini 6. 3 carbon, ini ialah 3. And then yang lepas tu, semua addition of phosphate group mesti dekat position 1. I hope by telling you this, it can help you to remember it better. And now, you can see that we have 2 ATP being used during the energy investment phase. They are guna 2 ATP. And this made the fructose 1,6-bisphosphate very high energy level. Increases the energy level in fructose 1,6-bisphosphate and make it unstable. Kalau dia unstable, dia akan
Split.
And that's why we call this as glycolysis. Kenapa glycolysis? Sebab dia split the sugar. Lyse, it means break. Glycol, it means sugar. So it breaks down the sugar or it splits the sugar. In this case, one glucose that split into two molecules of G3P at the end of energy investment phase. And that's the first part of glycolysis. The second part of glycolysis, dia akan buat apa?
Energy.
Energy
payoff.
payoff phase. So during energy payoff phase, dia akan produces ATP. Langsung tak guna ATP, dia kena menghasilkan ATP. And these are the following five steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 steps ini dia akan produce ATP. From G3P to 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate, dia melibatkan dua processes. What are the two processes?
Oxidation and phosphorylation.
Very good. Oxidation and phosphorylation. Okay, right. Phosphorylation dekat bahagian ini, dia guna phosphate group dari mana?
Cytosol.
Cytosol. So we did have the addition of phosphate group at this part because dari satu, now dia jadi ada dua phosphate group. Tapi sebab dia dekat energy payoff phase, if it's energy payoff, that means they can't use the phosphate group from ATP. And this addition of phosphate group is actually from the cytosol. After that, it also involves oxidation. Whenever we talk about oxidation, you mesti the first thing ingat oxidizing agent. So at this part for glycolysis, oxidizing agent dia ialah
NAD+.
very good. NAD+. Inilah oxidizing agent dia. Hopefully by now you already remember this. The role of NAD+, the role of NADH, what kind of reaction they involve. And now oxidation, it refers to the oxidation of G3P. Oxidation of G3P, they're oxidized by NAD+. So NAD+ sendiri undergo reduction. So dia terima hydrogen dari G3P. And dia sendiri dah jadi NADH. That's it. So make sure you remember this. Oxidation refers to the oxidation of G3P. G3P ini undergo oxidation, dia hilang hydrogen. So hydrogen ini pergi mana? Hydrogen ini gained by the NAD+. Transfer to NAD+. And then NAD+ ini pula dah jadi reduction, reduced into NADH. The role of NADH ialah
Reducing agent.
reducing agent. Okay. And then the next part produces ATP dekat sini. Right, manalah kita boleh nampak dia produce ATP dekat tempat yang hilang phosphate group. Dia opposite of investment. Kalau investment, dia nampak ada tambah phosphate group, tempat itulah yang dia akan uses the ATP. Tapi dekat energy payoff, where the part you see there's the loss of phosphate group, tempat itulah yang produces ATP. Apparently from bisphosphoglycerate jadi fosfor, dari dua phosphate group jadi satu je, tempat inilah yang dia hilang phosphate group. So phosphate group ini bagi dekat ADP. And that's how they form ATP. And what is this process?
Substrate level phosphorylation.
Good job. Substrate level phosphorylation. Sebab dia terus substrate bagi phosphate group dekat ADP, terus form ATP. That's what we call substrate level phosphorylation. And then you can see the rest dia masih sama, satu phosphate group, satu phosphate group, satu phosphate group. So bahagian ini dia tak terlibat the loss of phosphate group. That means dia tak produce ATP dekat dua steps ini. But now, from phosphoenolpyruvate to pyruvate, you can see dari other phosphate group jadi tak ada. So samalah dekat bahagian ini juga yang dia akan hilang phosphate group and then bagi dekat ADP to form ATP. And again, this is
Substrate level phosphorylation.
substrate level phosphorylation. Okay, and that's why over here from 1 G3P I akan dapat 2 ATP. Tapi awal-awal Miss dah bagi tahu, one glucose will have 2 molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So semua benda ini kena times 2. That means ATP sini pun kena times 2 and I will have 4 ATP produced at the end of energy payoff phase. So far so good.
Good, Miss.
The rest yang tak jawab, are you okay?
Okay, Miss.
Okay, Miss. Okay, Miss.
So now dekat sini, kalau dia tanya total ATP produced, kalau total ATP produced berapa?
4.
Very good.
Oh,
Total memang 4 sebab dari energy payoff dia memang produces 4 ATP. Tapi kalau sekarang dia tanya net ATP. Kalau soalan tanya net ATP produced,
2.
2.
2. So you kena bagi yang baki. Okay, that's it for this part. We are done for glycolysis. And when we look at the products of glycolysis, yang Miss hari tu tak tunjuk, the products of glycolysis, you will have 2 NADH dekat step 6 when glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dia tukar jadi 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate, tempat inilah yang dia akan produce NADH. So dekat step 6 ada 2 NADH produce and 2 net ATP produce sebab I cakap pasal net products. Kalau total memang 4 over here. 4 molecules are produced total. Tapi sebab 2 dah guna, net gain only 2. And I also have 2 pyruvate at the end of glycolysis. And now, if in the presence of oxygen, kalau ada oxygen, where will the pyruvate go?
Mitochondrial matrix.
Good job. So now over here, kalau ada oxygen, now this pyruvate, it will goes into the mitochondrial matrix. And orang lain tolong jawab untuk buat apa?
Convert to acetyl coenzyme A.
Good job. So pyruvate akan enter mitochondrial matrix and then dia akan undergo reaction that will convert it into acetyl-CoA. What is the name of the process?
Oxidative decarboxylation.
Yeah, so oxidative decarboxylation itu ialah nama proses dia, the reactions that take place, and that's oxidative decarboxylation. Now, again dari nama oxidative, kita tahu dia mesti akan guna oxidizing agent. So what is the oxidizing agent here? Anyone except Jordan, Eva, Hafiz, orang lain boleh. I have so many students here.
NAD plus.
Good job. NAD plus. So samalah untuk yang glycolysis pun oxidizing agent dia ialah NAD plus. Untuk sini pun oxidizing agent dia NAD plus. And you must remember this step very well. Sebab nanti masa Miss ajar Krebs cycle, you will come across this again. Oxidative decarboxylation. Whenever we talk about oxidative decarboxylation, the oxidizing agent is NAD plus. What does it mean by decarboxylation? Dia delete apa?
Carbon.
Delete carbon.
Carbon. That's it. So delete carbon in the way that kita akan dapat carbon dioxide. So let's look at this. What is the name of this stage? Stage ini kita panggil
Link reaction.
link reaction. Good job. Link reaction ataupun another name we call it as pyruvate oxidation. Okay. Either you call it link reaction or pyruvate oxidation. So first we have this 3 carbon jadi 2 carbon. You must remember this. 3 carbon jadi 2 carbon sebab dia dah buang carboxyl group. Dia buang carboxyl group, that's why I will get carbon dioxide. Itulah kenapa dia dah hilang 1 carbon. Sebab carbon tu dah buang. Kena buang dan jadi byproduct carbon dioxide. And as we say, dia ada oxidation. Oxidative, so ada oxidation and the oxidizing agent is NAD plus. That's why NAD plus dia akan ambil hydrogen. Dia sendirilah yang dah reduce. Dia sendiri reduce jadi NADH. What is the role of NADH?
Reducing agent.
Reducing agent.
Reducing agent.
So reducing agent, and now ada core A. Core A yang kita tambah. Kalau tak, dia jadi acetate sahaja. Dari pyruvate dah hilang carbon, dah oxidize, dia akan jadi acetate sahaja. Tapi sekarang kita tambah coenzyme A, is a type of cofactor untuk tolong enzyme. So coenzyme A dah tambah dan dia dah jadi acetyl CoA. Make sure you write C huruf besar, A huruf besar. And that's all for link reaction, or we say pyruvate oxidation. You can see how from 3 carbon dia jadi 2 carbon, and then oxidation of pyruvate ini by NAD+. Of course, dia lepas buang carbon baru dia undergo oxidation. Kalau you rujuk explanation yang Miss bagi hari tu, dia memang akan buang carbon dulu, decarboxylation dulu, lepas tu baru oxidation of the remaining 2 carbon molecule. Lepas tu baru dia oxidize dia and jadi acetate. Acetate yang 2 carbon, you tambah coenzyme A dan dia jadi acetyl CoA. And like we learned, during glycolysis, 1 glucose will give you how many pyruvate?
2.
2. So, sini pun 2 pyruvate. That means semua benda ini you kena times 2. I will get 2 carbon dioxide released. I will produce 2 NADH. And I will have 2 acetyl CoA. Until link reaction, boleh faham?
Boleh, Miss.
Boleh,
Okay.
Miss.
Right. So now, let's look at the question. After that, we look at Krebs cycle. So, soalan ini. Figure 4 shows, ini kami dah bincangkan hari itu. Right, this one. Figure 6 represents 4 steps in glycolysis. State the precise location in a cell where glycolysis occurs. Glycolysis berlaku dekat
Cytoplasm.
Cytosol.
cytoplasm. Very good. So cytosol boleh, cytoplasm pun boleh. Mana-mana satu pun boleh. And now identify compound A and B. Fructose 6-phosphate akan jadi
Fructose 1,6 bisphosphate.
good job. Fructose 1,6 bisphosphate. So ini yang frosty tu. And then after that dia akan start to split into 2 molecules, tapi sekarang yang akan continue jadi 1,3 bisphosphoglycerate. B mesti ialah
Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate.
A3P.
G3P, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Tak boleh tulis G3P ya, kena tulis juga glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. That's it. And now the next one. Based on figure 6, identify the steps in which ATP is consumed and NADH is produced. Like I told you earlier, kalau dia tak label step ini, macam mana you nak describe? You tak boleh cakap step 1. Step 1 tu you je yang tahu, tapi examiner tak tahu mana tu step 1. So you will have to describe it like fructose 6-phosphate to A. Guna balik unknown dia. Mana tahu kalau your A salah, nanti you tulis nama ini terus hilang markah juga dekat C, rugi. So better you keep the unknown. Now ATP is consumed, means that ATP is used. Dekat sini phosphate jadi bisphosphate, dia tambah phosphate group sebab phosphate group ini dari ATP. So ATP will give away the phosphate group, and that's how ATP dah jadi ADP. And this is the step where ATP is used. So kalau you tulis untuk jawapan ini, kita akan tulis fructose 6-phosphate to A. Boleh faham?
Boleh, Miss.
What about NADH is produced? NADH is produced dekat mana?
B213 bisphosphate glycerate.
Very good. B213 bisphosphoglycerate. Ejaan dia salah. That's how you do it. Okay. So for 2, the answer is B213 bisphosphoglycerate. And then untuk yang used to, terus tulis balik fructose 6-phosphate to A. Jangan ganti A dengan B. Guna balik unknown. And D, state all the end products of glycolysis. Itulah kenapa Miss ada bagi satu summary of all the products of glycolysis so that you senang untuk rujuk. Now, all the end products of glycolysis, what do we have? Kita dapat berapa pyruvate?
2.
Okay, 2 pyruvate.
2 net ATP.
To net ATP. Kalau you bagi I 4 ATP, I pun terima. Kalau you tulis 2, you kena tulis net. Okay, and then what else? NADH berapa?
2.
2. That's it. So I will get 2 NADH. Semua ini from one glucose molecule. And now E. State the total energy yielded. Yielded means yang ada, yang produced. Okay. State the total energy produced from glycolysis of 2 glucose molecules. So read the questions whether it is 1 or 2 or more. Tengok number berapa glucose dia bagi. Yielded means produced. Siapa yang tak tahu tulis ya. So the net ATP from 1 glucose I get 2 net ATP. So sekarang ada 2 glucose, I will get
4.
4. Good job. So 4 net ATP, I akan dapat 4. And then NADH pun 1 glucose ada 2. So sekarang 2 glucose I will have
4.
4 NADH.
4.
Good job. Okay, so that's it. That's why I told you in this chapter, number is very important. You must be clear how many products are produced from 1 glucose. Kita based on 1 glucose, and then dari 1 tu, you kena times lah. Kalau dia bagi 2 ke 5 ke. F. Explain briefly substrate level phosphorylation that occurs in glycolysis. Ini Miss dah bagi dalam nota. The last page of your notes, Miss ada include the questions. Inilah dia. Steps in glycolysis in which ATP is consumed or used. That's the way I explain it. So, nampak cara Miss explain? Kalau dia tak label step dalam diagram, at least you boleh tulis dari apa jadi apa. Ini cara you describe the step. And state the total energy yielded. Again, let's try this at the last page, last slide. Yielded, it means produced from glycolysis. Kalau sekarang 4 glucose, kalau 1 glucose, I will get 2 NADH and 2 net ATP. Tapi sekarang ada 4 glucose. How many ATP will I get?
8.
8. And then NADH pun?
8.
8. Right. Now, let's look at this one. Even though Miss tak explain tadi, tapi you sepatutnya tahulah byproducts of oxidative decarboxylation. Kita tahu oxidative oxidizing agent dia ialah
NAD+.
NAD+, good job. So, NAD+ ini dia akan reduce jadi apa?
NADH.
NADH. Itulah byproduct dia, NADH. So, jangan hafal saja, faham dari nama dia. Kalau nama oxidative, terus ingat, oh, dia ada oxidizing agent, NAD+. Ingat oxidizing agent NAD+, terus tahu dia akan reduce jadi NADH. And that's one of the byproducts. What about another one? Decarboxylation, byproduct dia ialah?
CO2.
CO2. Good job. Mesti ada dua-dua jawapan ini baru dapat 1 markah. So please remember the name. Ingat nama, terus you tahu byproducts dia. Kenapa kita cakap byproduct? Nanti Miss explain. Okay? So oxidative decarboxylation, byproduct kita ada NADH and CO2. Right, back to the question just now about substrate level phosphorylation. Ini ialah explanation dia, 2 markah. 1 mark, 1 mark. An enzyme facilitate direct transfer. Terus dia bagi phosphate group dekat ADP. Dari substrate tu, dia terus bagi phosphate group dekat ADP untuk buat ATP. That's the meaning of substrate level phosphorylation. Very straightforward. And this is the way you should explain that process. Clear?
Clear, Miss.
Clear, Miss.
Good job. And now let's look at link reaction again. Okay. So link reaction tadi masa kita bincang dia punya byproducts, kita cakap ialah NADH dengan CO2. What about the main products here? The main products from link reaction or pyruvate oxidation is acetyl-CoA. Ini ialah main product dari link reaction. Dua ini hanya byproduct. Maksudnya side products. Masa kita produce the main one, kita produce byproduct sekali. Maksudnya dia bukan yang utama. Yang utama kita nak acetyl-CoA, tapi dalam proses buat acetyl-CoA, kita juga produce NADH and CO2. So they are the byproducts. That's the meaning of byproducts. And NADH samalah, dia ialah reduced coenzyme and it acts as reducing agent. We are done for link reaction. And let's look at one question on link reaction yang Miss ada bagi untuk extra question. Ini. So in the extra question sets, nantilah Miss akan bagi untuk chapter lain juga kalau ada soalan yang bagus so that you can do more practices on structural question. And now let's look at this one together. Figure 2 shows a diagram representing a stage in a particular type of respiration. Based on figure 2, name, bagi nama dulu, and define the type of respiration involved. What do you think? This process ialah link reaction. Apparently, kita baru belajar pyruvate jadi acetyl-CoA, ini ialah link reaction. So what do you think? Which type of respiration involves link reaction?
Aerobic reaction.
Kita ada dua jenis respiration. So which one involves link reaction?
Aerobic respiration.
Good job. Aerobic respiration. And then bagi je lah definition dia. So for aerobic respiration, 1 mark. Bagi dulu nama, ikut soalan. Name dulu. Lepas tu baru define. The complete oxidation of glucose to carbon dioxide, water, and ATP in the presence of oxygen. And now B. Name the type of respiration that results in the incomplete breakdown of glucose. What is that? Yang incomplete breakdown.
Anaerobic respiration.
Anaerobic.
Salah. Ini jawapan dia fermentation.
Oh.
Alright, class. I will give you extra information on this. It will not come out in the exam, but just for your understanding. Anaerobic respiration, bahagian ini bukan dalam syllabus ya. I just want to tell you. Anaerobic respiration, it still involves complete oxidation of glucose. So apa beza anaerobic dengan aerobic? It's just on the final electron acceptor part. Sorry. Dia hanya beza dekat tempat final electron acceptor sahaja. Right. Aerobic respiration, like we learned just now, aerobic respiration mesti ada oxygen. Why do we need oxygen in aerobic respiration? It's actually as the final electron acceptor. Don't worry, we will learn this later. Tapi just early exposure to this information, oxygen in this case is to act as the final electron acceptor. Whereby dalam anaerobic, dia pun ada final electron acceptor. Dia pun complete oxidation of glucose. But it uses other compound macam nitrate ions, sulfate ions, carbon dioxide. Dia guna benda lain sebagai final electron acceptors. Instead of oxygen like that in aerobic respiration, it uses other thing like potassium nitrate. And this is what we call anaerobic respiration. It still involves complete oxidation. Soalan tadi yang incomplete oxidation is fermentation. This is extra thing for you to know, but at least I want you to see the difference between anaerobic dengan fermentation. Fermentation kita letak dia bawah anaerobic sebab dua-dua ini tak guna oksigen. Alright, anaerobic pun tak guna oksigen. Fermentation pun tak guna oksigen. Tapi anaerobic tak guna oksigen, dia guna benda lain. So it's still complete oxidation. But fermentation, dia memang incomplete breakdown of the glucose. Boleh faham?
Boleh, Miss.
Boleh, Miss.
Okay, that's why dekat chapter ini kita actually belajar yang aerobic dengan more specifically fermentation. So this answer is fermentation. C give two differences. Ini kita belum belajar. Hold on dulu. D state equation X. Baca soalan betul-betul. Dia nak substance ke? Dia nak equation. So dekat sini dia nak equation X and substance Y. What do you think? What is substance Y yang keluar? Release during link reaction.
CO2.
CO2.
Very good. CO2. And now equation ini mestilah yang NAD plus reduction. So pyruvate or oxidation berlaku dekat two carbon molecule itu. Kalau two carbon molecule itu kena oxidize, that means our NAD plus will undergo reduction. And like I told you, you need to know the equation sebab mungkin dia akan tanya dalam exam. And that's the equation. NAD plus plus 2H plus plus 2E. Ini Miss ada bagi dalam nota. Okay? I ada letak star juga. So, kalau tak nak, you boleh catat sekarang juga. NAD plus, kena tulislah bahagian ini, and then dia jadi NADH plus H plus. Boleh? D. So far, so good? Right. So let's look at E. By taking the previous stage in this type of respiration into account, how many net ATP molecules will be produced at the end of the stage in figure 2 from the oxidation of 5 molecules of glucose? And then they ask you to justify. Right, jawab dulu berapa net ATP yang dapat, and then explain. Class, link reaction dia ada tak produce ATP?
Tak ada.
Tak produce ATP.
Dia ada.
Tak ada. Yang produce ATP tu dekat bila? Glycolysis. That's it. Sebab tu soalan suruh taking the previous stage in this type of respiration into account. Maksudnya kita ambil kira proses sebelum link reaction. Proses sebelum link reaction ialah glycolysis. Okay? So glycolysis first step, lepas tu baru link reaction second stage. So now kita cakap link reaction tak produce ATP. Tapi dekat glycolysis dia produce berapa net ATP? 2. Well done. So now ambil kira glycolysis juga. What will you think? How many net ATP will I get from 5 molecules of glucose?
10.
10.
Good job. And inilah cara you explain. First mark given to how many net ATP? 10 net ATP produced. Dah, 1 mark. But then they ask you to explain, to justify. It means to explain kenapa ialah 10. So you kena bagi tahu dulu, the stage in figure 2 ini dia tak produce ATP. During link reaction, no ATP is produced. But during glycolysis, during the previous stage, which is glycolysis, the oxidation of 1 molecule of glucose will give you 2 net ATP. And that's why I will get the 10 net ATP here from 5 molecules of glucose. That's the way you explain. Dia memang nampak dia punya step by step. Oh, kenapa you cakap 10? Cakap dulu Stage dalam figure 2 ini tak produce ATP, tapi stage yang sebelum dia, previous stage, glycolysis, ada produce ATP. See how the answer, they are so precise. The stage in figure 2, no ATP produced, but the previous stage, which is glycolysis, tak boleh terus cakap during glycolysis. Bagi tahu dulu, during the previous stage, which is glycolysis, there produces 2 net ATP from 1 molecule of glucose. Bahagian ini sangat penting. You always have to mention how many molecule of glucose give you this number of products. Mesti bagi tahu. Like this one, you nak cakap 2 net ATP, you pun mesti mention it is from 1 molecule of glucose. Did I make it clear?
Yes,
Yes,
miss.
miss.
Okay. Right, so that's it for link reaction. And 5 minutes, then we will start with Krebs cycle.